Case: JonBenét Ramsey homicide. Location: Boulder, Colorado. Date: December 26, 1996. Victim: JonBenét Ramsey, age 6. Case status: officially unsolved. Some crime scenes are chaotic. Others are silent. And then there are scenes so strange, so confusing, that even decades later, investigators still argue about what really happened. Christmas night, 1996. A wealthy neighborhood in Boulder, Colorado. Snow outside. Christmas lights still glowing. Presents still sitting beneath decorated trees. Inside the Ramsey home, everything appeared normal. Until the morning after Christmas. Because before the day ended, a 6-year-old girl would be found dead inside her own house. And the investigation that followed would become one of the most controversial unsolved cases in American history. Her name was JonBenét Ramsey. A child beauty queen, a daughter, a sister, and nearly 30 years later, people still ask the same question. What really happened inside the Ramsey house? December 26, 1996. Just after 5 a.m., Patsy Ramsey walks downstairs inside the family's Boulder home. At first, it seems like an ordinary morning, but then she notices something unusual. Papers resting on the staircase. 3 handwritten pages. She begins reading. The note claims JonBenét has been kidnapped. The message warns the family not to contact police. It demands money. Exactly $118,000. An oddly specific amount. Later, investigators discover that number closely matched John Ramsey's recent business bonus. Immediately, questions begin. Why would a kidnapper know that amount? Patsy panics. She calls 911, her voice trembling. Frantic, barely controlled. Police arrive quickly, but from the beginning, something about the scene feels unusual. Because unlike most kidnapping cases, there are no obvious signs of forced entry, no broken doors, no shattered windows, no visible struggle. And yet, JonBenét is nowhere to be found. At least, that's what everyone believes. The Ramsey home was large, very large, multiple floors, long hallways, several staircases, storage rooms, a basement, a complicated layout. And according to many investigators, that complexity became a major problem almost immediately, because the scene wasn't fully secured. Friends arrived. Family members moved around. People comforted each other. Potential evidence may have been unintentionally disturbed within the first few hours. Some officers later admitted. The investigation started under the assumption that this was a kidnapping, not a homicide. That assumption shaped everything. Officers searched rooms, checked doors, took notes, but nobody realized the truth may still have been inside the house itself. Meanwhile, investigators focused heavily on the ransom note, and the note only became stranger the longer they studied it. It was unusually long, detailed, almost theatrical. Some investigators believed it sounded less like a real ransom demand, and more like someone trying to imitate one. Then another detail emerged. The paper and pen used to write the note allegedly came from inside the Ramsey home, which raised a disturbing possibility. Did someone inside the house write it? Or did an intruder spend enough time inside the home to calmly sit down and compose a 3-page message? Both possibilities seemed difficult to explain. Hours pass. Still no contact from kidnappers. No demands. No instructions. No proof JonBenét is alive. Investigators begin growing uneasy. Then, John Ramsey decides to search the house again. He moves toward the basement. The lower level is dim, cold, quiet. One room draws attention. A small interior cellar. John opens the door. And everything changes, because inside the room, he finds JonBenét, 6 years old, still inside the house. The kidnapping investigation instantly transforms into a homicide case. But the discovery creates even more confusion. Why would a kidnapper leave the body inside the home? Why stage a ransom note? And how had officers missed the room during earlier searches? The scene becomes emotionally overwhelming. John carries JonBenét upstairs. Another decision investigators later criticized, because it may have affected forensic evidence. But at that moment, logic and procedure collide with shock and grief. And from that point forward, the case becomes increasingly complicated. Investigators begin documenting the scene. Evidence includes duct tape, cord bindings, fibers, handwriting samples, unidentified DNA. But almost every piece of evidence becomes controversial. Different experts reach different conclusions. Some forensic analysts believe the scene suggests staging. Others believe evidence points toward an outside intruder. The DNA becomes one of the biggest mysteries. Unknown male DNA is reportedly found on JonBenét's clothing. Over the years, that discovery fuels endless debate. Some believe it proves an intruder entered the home. Others argue the sample may be too small, compromised, or unrelated. Then there's the ransom note. Handwriting experts analyze it extensively. Some believe Patsy Ramsey could not be ruled out. Others disagree completely. Nothing becomes definitive. And that uncertainty fractures the investigation. Because the more evidence investigators collect, the less clear the overall picture becomes. The media explodes. Within weeks, the JonBenét Ramsey case dominates national headlines. Photos of JonBenét in pageants appear everywhere. Television coverage becomes non-stop. People begin forming theories. And the theories become increasingly divided. Some believe an intruder entered the house. The crime was planned. The ransom note was part of a larger scheme. Others believe the truth originated inside the home. Panic led to staging. Critical details point toward family involvement. Books are written. Documentaries released. Televised interviews analyzed frame by frame. Every expression, every statement, every inconsistency. America becomes obsessed. But obsession doesn't solve the case. Instead, it creates noise. And inside that noise, facts become harder to separate from speculation. Supporters of the intruder theory point to unidentified DNA, possible basement access points, the absence of a clear confession. Some investigators believe an outsider entered the home while the family attended a Christmas party, possibly waiting inside before they returned. Others point to unexplained marks, open windows, and unusual evidence patterns. But critics argue, why would an intruder remain inside long enough to write a lengthy ransom note? Why risk staying in the house? Why leave the body behind? The theory remains controversial. Other investigators focus on the family, not necessarily because of direct evidence, but because of behavioral inconsistencies, forensic questions, and the unusual nature of the scene. Some believe the crime may have begun accidentally, followed by panic, followed by staging. But again, no theory becomes definitive. And perhaps the most important fact remains: no one in the Ramsey family was ever convicted. Years later, DNA developments would further complicate the public narrative. As years pass, criticism of the original investigation grows. Former investigators publicly disagree. Jurisdiction conflicts emerge. Mistakes are acknowledged. Among the biggest concerns: crime scene contamination, early assumptions, media pressure, public leaks. Inconsistent investigative direction. Some experts believe the first 24 hours permanently damaged the case. Because once evidence is compromised, it becomes almost impossible to fully reconstruct what happened. And in a case already filled with contradictions, those early mistakes may have changed everything. Decades later, new forensic technology continues reopening discussions. Advanced DNA testing, genealogical analysis, digital reconstruction. Some investigators believe modern science may still uncover answers hidden for years. Others remain skeptical. Because evidence degrades, memories fade, witnesses die, and time changes cases. Still, public interest never disappears. Every few years, a new documentary, interview, or theory brings the case back into the spotlight. And every time it happens, people ask the same question: was the truth overlooked from the beginning? Or was the case simply too damaged to solve? The JonBenét Ramsey case isn't just a mystery. It's a collision of grief, media obsession, investigative mistakes, forensic uncertainty, and unanswered questions. Because nearly 30 years later, one reality remains unchanged. No one knows exactly what happened inside that house. Not with certainty. And maybe that's why the case still haunts people. Because unlike most crimes, this one never reached a clear ending. No resolution. No definitive truth. Only theories, suspicions, and fragments of evidence people still argue about decades later. And maybe the most unsettling part isn't just that the crime remains unsolved. It's that somewhere inside the confusion, the truth may have been there all along, hidden beneath panic, noise, and mistakes that could never be undone. What do you think? Do you believe the JonBenét Ramsey case was an intruder attack, a staged kidnapping, or something far more complicated? Let me know in the comments. And subscribe for more true crime investigations, unsolved mysteries, and cold case documentaries. Because some crime scenes don't disappear with time. Sometimes, they only grow colder.